Randy Meisner, whose vocal range helped catapult the Eagles to fame, has died.
Randy Meisner was one of the iconic voices that took the Eagles to soaring heights. He was the man who sang the incredible hit notes and Take It to the Limit that seemed impossible. Yet he was the one who walked away from the band. But there is something about Randy's story that no one knew until now. Don Henley has recently revealed something that changes how we see Randy Meisner. In fact, it changes how we see the Eagles entirely. So, what did Henley finally reveal about Randy Meisner? And why did he do it after his death? And to really understand the secrets Don Henley just shared, you have to start at the beginning. You have to start with the quiet kid from Nebraska who once stood in the shadow of cornfields. Before Randy Meisner ever became the voice of the Eagles, he was just a small-town boy with a big voice, and no idea where it might take him. The year was 1946, and Randy Meisner entered the world in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. If you have never been to Scottsbluff, imagine the kind of place where the sky stretches forever, and the nearest neighbor might be a mile away. His parents, Herman and Emily, were not running a music conservatory. They just had a farm where they would raise corn, beans, alfalfa, and sugar beets. The Meisner family grew whatever the season demanded, and young Randy grew up right alongside those crops. You see, the Meisners were Volga German, descendants of people who had already been displaced once from Germany to Russia, then again from Russia to America. They carried with them this deep-rooted belief in keeping your head down, working hard, and not making too much noise. Music was fine for Sunday church, but it was not a career. It was not even a hobby, really. But Randy was different from day one. His mother, Emily, would hum while she worked around the house, and his grandfather had this old violin he would pull out sometimes. So music was always floating around the edges of Randy's world, like smoke from a distant fire. Then came the night that changed everything. Elvis, on the Ed Sullivan Show. Randy was just a kid, maybe 10 years old, sitting cross-legged in front of their black and white TV when Elvis appeared. That voice, that power, that raw magnetism. Something clicked inside Randy that night. Something he would carry for the rest of his life. He got his hands on a cheap guitar, probably bought secondhand from someone in town, and started teaching himself. He would just sit in his bedroom and copy what he would hear on the radio. The Everly Brothers, Little Richard, and Sam Cooke. These singers became his teachers who spoke to him through the airwaves from a world that felt impossibly far from those Nebraska cornfields. Then a high school teacher noticed Randy fooling around with music and suggested he try bass guitar. That's when everything changed in his life. In 1961, he joined a local band called the Dynamics, later renamed the Drive-In Dynamics. They played anywhere that would have them: high school dances, bars, and gymnasiums across Nebraska and Wyoming. Randy played bass and sang, and by late 1962, they actually recorded a 4-song EP. Randy sang lead on You Send Me by Sam Cooke, and they printed exactly 500 copies. That was it. They just had some local fame, nothing more. But the seed was planted. In 1965, they signed a small deal with Sully Records in Texas. They recorded So Fine, which actually sold decently in the South. But by 1966, Randy was done. He had outgrown Nebraska, outgrown the small-time scene. He packed up and moved to California, chasing a dream he couldn't even fully articulate yet. But Randy didn't roll into Hollywood with a record deal and a trust fund. He had no car, barely any money, and sometimes made ends meet by selling newspapers on the street. $5 a day, hawking the LA Free Press. That's how the future voice of the Eagles survived in the City of Dreams. He joined a band called the Soul Survivors, which became The Poor. It was a name that pretty much summed up their situation. They released some singles, and one of them, She's Got the Time, She's Got the Changes, showed real promise. They even got booked to open for Jimi Hendrix in New York. This should have been the big break, but it ended miserably for them. Mismanagement, confusion, and they barely got to play. They had to beg for plane tickets just to get home. But people were noticing Randy's voice, that high, smooth, soulful sound that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than his throat. In 1968, he was invited to audition for a new band forming in Los Angeles, a country rock project that would become Poco. Richie Furay and Jim Messina from Buffalo Springfield were putting together something fresh. They were trying to blend rock and country in ways nobody had tried before. Randy joined as bassist and backing vocalist, and he helped shape Poco's debut album, Picking Up the Pieces. His harmonies added emotional depth, and his bass lines gave it structure. But just as the album was about to be released, everything fell apart. Randy was excluded from the final mix sessions. Only Messina and Furay got to make the final decisions. Then came the ultimate insult. His vocals were replaced, and his image was removed from the album cover. It was swapped out for a picture of a dog, so Randy walked away, once again. In 1969, he joined Rick Nelson's Stone Canyon Band. Yes, it was the same Rick Nelson who had been a teen idol in the 50s, but now he was moving toward a more mature, country-infused sound. This was a serious step up. Nelson was a perfectionist, and the environment forced Randy to grow as a professional. He toured, co-produced Nelson's Live at the Troubadour album, and learned how to hold his own in a tight, demanding group. At the same time, Randy was becoming a go-to session musician. He played bass on James Taylor's Sweet Baby James, including tracks like Country Road and Blossom, without most people even knowing he was there. He also worked on Waylon Jennings' 1970 album and did sessions for Jon Stewart and others. Quietly, he was building a reputation as someone reliable, versatile, and gifted. But by 1970, the pressure and exhaustion caught up to him. After a brutal tour in Europe, Randy returned to Nebraska. He went back to working at a John Deere tractor dealership during the day and played with a local band called Gold Rush at night. He was almost done with the industry. Then one last opportunity came knocking. In 1971, Linda Ronstadt was assembling a new backing band. Her producer reached out to Randy. He accepted, not knowing this decision would be the final turn before history. But this is what you need to understand about Randy at this point. There were no arenas yet. He had no hit records, no platinum albums. Just a kid from the plains who wanted to play music the right way, with feeling and honesty. Fame was not the goal. It never was. So, what happened then? Joining the Eagles. You see, when Linda Ronstadt's producer called Randy, he didn't just call Randy. He called three other guys: Don Henley, Glenn Frey, and Bernie Leadon. 4 musicians, 1 backing band, and absolutely no idea they were about to make history. They felt the chemistry in the very first meeting. You know how sometimes you meet someone and you just click? That's what happened with these 4, except it was musical. Even though they were technically just Ronstadt's backing band, something electric was happening behind her on that stage. After the tour ended, these 4 musicians did what most people in their position would never dream of. They walked away from a secure gig with a charting artist to start their own band. That band became the Eagles. And from day one, Randy was never just the bass player. Sure, he held down the rhythm section like a master, but he was shaping the sound of the band in ways that fans and critics didn't always recognize. He brought this pure, emotional vocal range that could lift harmonies into something you felt in your chest. Do you want proof? Those early Eagles albums are soaked in Randy's presence. Their self-titled debut album, Eagles, in 1972 set the tone for everything that followed. Randy sang lead vocals on Take the Devil and Tryin'. These are the songs that showed his range and emotional delivery. By the time Desperado came out in 1973, the Eagles had carved out a real identity. Randy kept contributing as a singer and as a songwriter. He co-wrote Certain Kind of Fool with Frey and Henley, but it was not until one of these nights in 1975 that Randy absolutely stunned the world. That's when he sang and co-wrote the song that would become his signature forever, Take It to the Limit. That song became the band's first million-selling single. Randy hit a high falsetto that pushed beyond what most singers even attempted, and he did it without fanfare, without showing off. That high note at the end was Randy Meisner's voice, raw and real. And when they performed it live, that final line made audiences absolutely erupt. No matter what had come before in the show, people waited for that part. It gave them goosebumps every single time. That voice, his voice, was a huge part of why the Eagles became one of the biggest bands in the world during the mid-70s. Every album they released during that golden period, including On the Border in 1974, One of These Nights in 1975, and Hotel California in 1976, shot straight up the charts. Their sound became the blueprint for California rock, and Randy helped hold that entire sound together. He was not the loudest guy in the room, or the one grabbing headlines. He didn't fight for the spotlight like some of the others. He was, by all accounts, shy, even painfully shy at times. But when the band needed a note no one else could hit, or a harmony that gave a song real emotional depth, they turned to Randy. And he always delivered. He also kept writing. On Hotel California, he wrote and sang Try and Love Again, which is a quiet, heartfelt track that got buried under the album's massive hits, but remains a fan favorite to this day. But what Don Henley just revealed about what was really happening during those glory days changes everything we thought we knew about the man behind that iconic voice. The end of an era. Things were going incredibly well on the surface. The Eagles were one of the biggest bands on the planet. They were playing sold-out stadiums, topping charts, and winning awards. But behind all that success, everything was getting harder, especially for Randy Meisner. By 1976, the Eagles had just released Hotel California, and it was an absolute monster hit. But success came with a price that nobody really prepared for. The band's schedule was brutal. There was non-stop touring, impossible expectations, and endless hours in the studio. Randy was exhausted, not just tired, he was completely drained. He was dealing with pneumonia, and his ulcers had flared up from the constant stress. Most nights, he was struggling to hit the same high notes that fans expected from Take It to the Limit. Randy's voice just couldn't get there anymore. But the band could not stop. Every show had to be perfect. Every night had to end with Randy's big solo moment, and the pressure kept building like a dam about to burst. Then came the night that changed everything. Knoxville, Tennessee, 1977. Randy had been sick. He had stayed up late. His voice was strained, and he knew he could not deliver the song. So he did what any reasonable person would do. He told the band he couldn't do Take It to the Limit that night. And that's when Glenn Frey absolutely exploded. The argument backstage was a full-blown fight. They screamed. They argued. It even turned physical. Randy punched Glenn in frustration. And just like that, it was over. That night was his final show with the Eagles. The band didn't make a big announcement or give him a proper send-off. Randy just disappeared from the lineup. The public was told he left to spend more time with his family, which is the classic rock star exit story. But those close to the band knew the truth, that he felt like an outsider in his own band. Randy later said something that really cuts to the heart of it all. "I could have tripled my money if I'd stayed, but I was just tired of the touring. It's a crazy life that you live at twice the normal speed. When it came down to sanity or money, I thought I'd rather have my sanity." And that pretty much says everything you need to know about Randy Meisner. He was not in it for the fame. He never had been. The Eagles replaced him with Timothy B. Schmidt. Ironically, he was the same guy who had replaced him in Poco years earlier, and the band kept going, climbing even higher. Meanwhile, Randy quietly stepped away, just as the spotlight got brightest. After leaving the Eagles in 1977, Randy tried to keep making music. He released a few solo albums, including One More Song in 1980, which had some success. But it was clear that he wasn't chasing stardom anymore. He toured a bit, made music with other artists, and stayed mostly out of the spotlight. But life after the Eagles was not easy. In the years that followed, Randy struggled with depression, alcoholism, and later, bipolar disorder. He said the pressure from his years with the Eagles had left deep marks, ones he could not shake. And without the structure and purpose of the band, it became harder to manage everything. In 1996, he married Randy Meisner, who had been in his life for over a decade. For a while, things looked hopeful, but friends would later say their relationship was rocky. As Randy's mental health worsened, the tension at home increased. By the 2010s, Randy's condition had reached a dangerous point. In 2015, a friend filed a court petition asking for a conservatorship, saying Randy had made suicidal threats, including one where he allegedly said that he would gun everyone down with an AK-47. The court granted temporary 24-hour supervision to help keep him safe. There were also claims that Lana was keeping him drunk, possibly to make him easier to control. Whether those claims were true or not, the home environment was clearly volatile. Then in March 2016, the worst happened. Police were called to their Studio City home after Lana called 911 to report a domestic dispute. About 90 minutes later, another call came in, this time from Randy. Lana had been shot and killed. According to the LAPD, Lana had been trying to move a rifle stored in a soft case. The gun went off accidentally, hitting her in the head. The death was ruled an accident, and security footage confirmed Randy was in a different room at the time. Still, the media went crazy after this incident. Some people questioned what really happened, but legally, Randy was not charged with anything. After Lana's death, Randy completely shut down. He disappeared from public life, stopped performing entirely, and was placed under psychiatric hold due to his fragile emotional state. Friends said he never recovered from losing her. Lana had been his last real support system, even if their relationship had not always been perfect. By the time Glenn Frey died in 2016, the Eagles regrouped to tour with Frey's son, but Randy was not even mentioned. There was no tribute or even any invitation to rejoin for special occasions. He had become a ghost in the band's history. And then Randy passed away in July 2023 at age 77. He passed away from complications related to COPD. Fans around the world mourned him. He was remembered for his soaring vocals, his gentle spirit, and the unforgettable role he played in shaping one of the greatest bands of all time. But the most surprising moment came days later when Don Henley finally spoke. His biggest secret. In a public tribute, Don Henley called Randy an integral part of the Eagles and praised his astonishing vocal range. It was respectful, kind, even touching. But then Henley shared something he had never said publicly before. Something that changes how we see Randy's entire story. He told a story from years ago, after a show. Randy had walked into the room, sat down quietly, and said, "I wish I had never joined the Eagles." Henley said it was not anger in Randy's voice. It was pure sadness. Randy told him he hated the attention, the pressure, the fake social scenes, and the impossible expectations. He said he would have been happier as a carpenter back in Nebraska than as a rock star under a microscope. This was the part that absolutely shocked fans. All that time, while millions sang along to his voice, while crowds screamed for "Take It to the Limit," while the band's fame exploded worldwide, Randy was not enjoying any of it. He was enduring it. He had always loved music, but not the industry, not the touring, and definitely not the fame. He was never comfortable with superstardom. That's probably why he walked away when so many others would have stayed and collected the paychecks. And it's also probably why fans loved him the way they did, because he never faked it. He never pretended to be something he wasn't. Even after everything, Randy Meisner's voice still lives on. It's in every harmony on those early Eagles records. It's in that final note of "Take It to the Limit." It's in the quiet power of someone who didn't want to be famous but became unforgettable anyway. And maybe that's his biggest legacy. Now tell us, what's your favorite Randy Meisner song? Write it in the comments below. And before you go, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more updates. Goodbye for now.